Hello and welcome to this recording of the open evening presentation for Haggerston School. Thank you so much for those of you who came to visit the school, and for those of you that weren't able to visit the school, we have done this recording to hopefully give you a flavour of what Haggerston School offers to our students. So the very first slide that you see in front of you here is our mission statement. And these statements embody what we hope for our students, but also for us as staff. It's something that we as a whole community of both staff and students strive for. And we have organised our thinking into three categories: aspiration, creativity and character. We feel that these things really run through the DNA of Haggerston School and underpin all of our kind of planning around curriculum, enrichment, and also school improvement and what drives us. You will see on this slide, the slide that's showing at the moment, our most recent examination results. And I'm kind of unapologetically starting with our examination results because it is a really important part of the function of schools and the responsibility of schools to make sure that students leave with a really good set of qualifications that will enable them to go on to their next steps, their preferred chosen pathway in education and beyond. And what I hope this shows is the trajectory of improvement that the school has been on. We've seen year-on-year improvements over the last 5 years. I haven't included 2020 and 2021, not because the results were not good, they were very good, but because they were teacher assessments and therefore not comparable with 2018 and 2019. And what I hope you can see there is that the school has made good strides and improvement, with a 10% increase in the proportion of students who've left with a good pass, a grade 9 to 5, which represents in our old system kind of A star to B minus. 47% of those students compared to only 37% in 2019. The EBAC average probably warrants a little bit of explanation, but that is the average grade that students achieved across English, maths, their science subjects, a humanities and a language. And it shows that the average grade is kind of a high 4 across the whole cohort and the whole year group. And that's an increase of almost a whole grade from 2019. And then finally, attainment 8 is the average grade achieved by all students across their best 8 subjects. And you can see at 49.9, it's just over half a grade's improvement, and also means that students on average were achieving about a grade 5 across their subjects. And that encompasses the whole year group of students of all different abilities. I've included year 13 information because even though that probably feels a long way away for your child, it comes around very quick, and it's important that you know that you're choosing a school for your child to stay at until they are 18. And our exam results at A-level are really excellent. The average grade achieved was a B minus this year, a whole grade higher than in 2019. And you can see there the percentage of students achieving A star to B also rose dramatically to 57%. So the proportion of students getting the best grades is very high, but every single child passed their course. There was no failed subjects, no failed exams whatsoever across the sixth form, and we're very proud of that. So what that looks like when you break it down to GCSE subjects is, is a set of subjects which have really solid pass rates. But as you scroll across that table, you can see the proportions of students getting the top grades 7 to 9. And in particular, in the triple sciences, biology, chemistry and physics, you can see that more than half of the students achieved the top grade 7 to 9, which in the old system would have equated to an A star, or this kind of new super A star, which is a grade 9, that only a very small proportion of students across the country achieve. Across the rest of the English baccalaureate subjects, computer science, Spanish, geography and history, again, you see very solid pass rates and good proportions of students achieving the top grades. In Spanish, almost half of the students achieved a grade 7 to 9. And in many schools, Spanish is quite an elite subject that only a small proportion of students take. But in our school, 85% of students achieve the EBAC. So 85% of students study for Spanish GCSE. In the option subjects, these are the subjects we think of as our foundation subjects. Again, you'll see a suite of really strong pass rates across the board and good proportions of students achieving those top grades. So just drawing your attention to music, where almost 70% of students got the top grades, to drama, where almost half did, and to design, technology and textiles, where 40% of students got those top grades. We're very proud of those results because when I first started here almost 6 years ago now, there was big variation in the achievement of subjects in different subjects. So depending on what subjects a child chose for their options, they either had very excellent quality of education or it could be quite variable. And we've worked very hard to iron out that variation so that whatever subjects students choose for their GCSE options, they're guaranteed a really strong and consistent quality of education across the board. And there is no, sense in which they will underachieve as a result of that. And that's something we work very hard to iron out, in which we feel this set of results really demonstrates that consistency and parity of quality across all subjects in the school. So it's a big decision deciding which school your child should go to for secondary school. I've been there myself. My son is in year 7 and my daughter, we went through that with her a few years ago. She's now in year 10. And the first thing that I would say is that you're very fortunate to have the choice that you have in Hackney, because you have a choice of really strong schools, all good and outstanding. And the things that make us similar are much greater than the things that are different between us. There's a lot of collaboration between Hackney schools and there are many similarities. But when you're making this decision, I think it is important to look at the things that make each individual school unique, because only in doing so can you tailor the choice to your child. And you know your child best, you know their interests, you know their passions, their talents, and you also know the kind of environment that would be the best fit for them. And so my job today is to talk to you about what I think makes Haggerston distinctive and different as a school. And the first distinctive feature that I would talk about is the fact that we are the largest secondary school site in Hackney. And what that enables us to do is provide really good specialist facilities for students and, crucially, lots of outside space. So we're able to give year 7 their own playground, which means they can play in an age-appropriate way and make that transition from primary school in their own time. They can really get to know their year group before they integrate with the rest of the school. And when they do that in year 8, they're usually really confident. We have very good specialist sports facilities, which means that we're able to offer students not just in PE, but in their lunch hour, basketball courts, space to play football, space in the sports hall to do other sports, and lots of table tennis tables too. And we think that's important because in many schools, the school site makes it very difficult to accommodate all students for a kind of a reasonably length lunch hour. So lots of schools might have lunch hours of sort of 35 minutes or half an hour on a rotation. But we have a school site that enables us to have almost an hour for lunch, where children can come down, they can eat. All students are out at the same time, which means we can run lots of different clubs at lunchtime. And it also means that students have that playtime during the day. We work them really hard in their lessons and we expect a lot of them. So we want them to be able to run around, to spend time with their friends and enjoy that break in the middle of the day. And we feel that that's a really healthy thing. We are a grade 2 listed building, and I realise the advantage of that is that the school has to be maintained at a very high standard because of that grade 2 listing. So if something breaks in the school, or if there's a problem with the roof, it will be, or windows, or any aspect of the school site, it will be replaced, and it will be replaced at a very high specification. And I think that's one of the reasons why, even though we are a school built in the 1960s, the school looks fantastic and has had the investment to keep the facilities, continuing to keep the facilities updated so that we are able to offer really high quality specialist science facilities, DT, professional standard studios, a sprung floor for dance, and a whole array of other specialist facilities. And I think students here really do appreciate how lucky they are to have that. And that's one of the reasons why I think they maintain the site so well. We don't have big problem with graffiti or littering or children in any way disrespecting the site, because I think they do realise that we put a lot of work into making sure they have the best environment possible in which to learn. All schools will have a curriculum, and we are held to pretty high standards about that curriculum, both by Ofsted and by the national curriculum, by which schools are expected to deliver key knowledge. I would describe our curriculum as being knowledge rich. What that means is that when we started planning our curriculum, we looked at what it would take to be an expert in a subject, to master a subject. So, for example, to be 18 and be in a position where you could go and study it at degree level, we started there and said, well, if you're going to achieve a grade A level, what would you need to know? And then we plotted back all the way down to year 7, what the key information and knowledge that you would need to be able to master in order to get you to that place when you get to age 18. And we've broken each subject down into 10 key objectives that students need to master each year on their journey through the school. And what that does is it kind of demystifies something that can feel very complex when you get into secondary school, because your child might go from having one teacher who you talk to about how they're getting on across the board to suddenly having maybe 14 different teachers, and each subject has a whole dense curriculum, and it can feel quite impenetrable for students and for their parents. So we've worked quite hard to try and demystify the curriculum for students. And the first way we've done it is through those key knowledge objectives, which they can access through their DPR, and parents can as well. That's an app that you can download, and you can see your child's report, you can see your child's homework, students submit their homework through the DPR, and it becomes a really key part of the way in which they operate at the school. To further help students to acquire that knowledge and commit it to their long-term memories, we have created knowledge organisers. These are effectively like school textbooks, and they get a new one each term, and it outlines for every subject, just on one page, a really visually appealing set of knowledge that they have to commit to memory for that subject for that term, so that they're on track to master all of those key information. And this functions effectively as a revision tool for students, but it also supports their learning in lessons, it supports their learning for homework, and then when they do come to revise for their exams, it gives them a kind of one-stop shop of what they need to know. And it means that for parents, you only have to interact with that one resource. You can help them and test them on that one resource and see how they're getting on with committing that to their long-term memory. The reason why that's so important is that what we realise is that the new GCSEs don't allow for students to just cram the night before or in the few weeks before the exam. They really do test students' depth of understanding about the subject and their breadth of understanding about a subject. And so students need to be able to be continually revisiting key content, key knowledge, really from year 7 all the way up to year 11, so that when they do come to sit those exams, they're able to articulate that learning in a really confident way. And we also feel that that incremental approach to learning key information not only sets students up for their future lives, because it means that they genuinely have learned something as opposed to just learned it temporarily and forgotten it, but also it helps with their mental health, because it's a very stressful thing being in year 11 and 13 and having to trying to master huge amounts of knowledge all at once. So by breaking it down and doing that step by step, term by term, we're actually taking some of the burden away from those very stressful exam years. One of the things that students ask me the most when they come to visit from primary schools is it a strict school? It's probably the thing that students worry about the most. And I always answer them the same way, which is, yes, we are a strict school, but that's something you should be happy about, because only by being a strict school can we make sure that we create the kind of environment where students can learn without disruption, where they feel safe in the playground and in the corridor, where they don't need to worry about bullying, because those things they know we have authority over, that we've created a safe and secure environment in which they can learn. It does mean that we have very clear routines that students need to follow. And we also have, as you would expect in any school, sanctions, but also rewards. When I train staff around our behaviour policy, we always talk about it as a warm, strict school, which means the higher our expectations in terms of discipline, the warmer we are, which means that we exert discipline because we care about students. We do it with compassion. We do it with love for students, because we know that they are children, they will make mistakes, but it's our job to help them to learn and to develop the skills that will enable them to go on to live successful and fulfilled lives, which is where I started on that first slide. In order to do that, students need to learn how to organise themselves. They need to learn how to have positive peer relationships with other children and other adults. They need to be able to have the self-regulation and self-control of their emotions, that they don't impair relationships and they don't impair opportunities that might come to them further down the line. And we take our responsibility to teach those skills to students very seriously, and we work in partnership with parents to do that. We have a huge number of interventions that we put in place for students who struggle to meet our expectations. We don't lower our expectations for students, but we support them and scaffold their journey to meeting those expectations through either mental health and wellbeing interventions, or emotional regulation, or social communication, learning interventions, interventions that involve mentoring or counselling. There is a huge, vast array of things that we can offer students. On any given week, 97% of students will have no sanctions whatsoever. But it varies week on week, but around 3% of our school students will have some kind of sanctions or some kinds of difficulties meeting the expectations of the school. And that's where we concentrate our energy and support for students when we know that they are struggling to meet our expectations. One of the reasons why you may be interested in Haggerston is our long-standing reputation for the arts, and it really is something I can take no credit for. It was fantastic when I arrived here, and it's even more fantastic, but it's a real testament to the exceptional standard of education that's provided by the creative arts faculty. Students have ability to take part in productions that happen each year, which are of such an amazing standard. I've never really seen anything like it in school, because they're almost professional standard productions, and they also encompass large numbers of students across the school. They're very inclusive as well. And when I go into those lessons, I see children grappling with really complex and abstract concepts and finding creative ways to express their views, their ideas, to debate and consider. And that's something that we think is really important as a school. It's one of the central ways in which we meet our mission, which I set out on that first slide, which is for children to be confident, for children to be independent-minded, for children to be able to articulate their views, to understand and know their place within the world. So for some students, that might mean studying 2 or more art subjects at GCSE and potentially even into A-level. And we've had lots of students who go on to professional careers in the arts and professional careers in art or drama or music at very prestigious organisations. But there will also be students who don't choose to study those subjects at GCSE, and that is fine as well. But we want every child to study an hour of art, drama and music and 2 hours of design technology throughout Key Stage 3, because we feel that even if students don't go on to specialise in those subjects, what they gain from studying those subjects helps and supports their achievement across the board and their personal growth and development as well. We don't just expect creativity to happen only within those art subjects, though. When we go into maths, we want to see creative problem solving. When we go into science, we want to see practical applications of science in the real world context. And when we're organising curriculum-based trips, we want to be able to take students into creative environments where they can see the subject that they're studying in a real world context. And we think that's a really important part of how we enhance our curriculum for students here at Haggerston. Our character programme is really vast. We have 6 character days a year where students study their PSHE curriculum. But alongside those, we also do drop days for careers. We take students out of school on subject-related trips. We make sure that students have access to really high-quality sport. And we also have lots of programmes in school to help with external specialists and providers to help students with personal development, whether those are visiting authors or visiting lecturers or working with organisations such as Beyond Equality or Mentors in Violence to help students have an understanding of how they can play a positive part in society, in wider communities and societies, and also how they can play a part in the community of Haggerston School. We have a really extensive leadership programme for students. Any child can be part of the student union, and students can be part of the buddy system. They can be subject leaders, they can be head teachers ambassadors, and they eventually in the 6th form can become future leaders. And each of these programmes enables students to foster and develop their own confidence and their own leadership attributes and prepare them for the world of work after school. We are also very lucky to have been part of the WAMS pilot project, which means that we have a CAMS specialist clinician in school 1 day a week. And not only has she helped us to manage our caseload of children who have acute issues with mental health, she's also helped us to build systems in school that foster the mental health and well-being of every child. She works in conjunction with the safeguarding team and also our own counselling service through A-Space, which we've had it's been a long-standing feature of the school to make sure that students are really well supported when they need help with any aspects of their school life or their personal life. Every child in year 7 and 8 has access to enrichment. We recognised several years ago that the most advantaged children in the school were the ones attending maybe 4 or 5 clubs a week. And the children that were the least advantaged were often the ones that were leaving the school straight away at 3:30 when the bell went. So we wanted to build enrichment into children's everyday life. And so every child in year 7 and 8 has enrichment on a Friday afternoon, which means that they can choose from a long list of different options that they're interested in, and they change every term. So by the time children finish year 8, they will have taken 6 different electives. And that might be everything from chess club to debating, to dance, to cookery, to coding. There are a whole array of different options that they can select from. And what that means is that every child gets a baseline of experience that helps to foster their talents, their interests, and their confidence. There are also a whole array of other clubs and societies that children can be part of across the school at lunchtime, after school, and before school. Those are on offer to every child. In year 9, every student has the opportunity to take part in the Duke of Edinburgh Award, and we have a really high proportion of the year group that complete that really successfully. And that means that they're set up then for when they attend the sixth form to complete the silver and the gold awards in that subject area, in that particular award. One of the things that makes having a child move to secondary school quite daunting is that change from having that one point of contact in the school, the primary school teacher, to having multiple points of contact and being able to kind of stay on top of and understanding their child's experience through school. And I know from my own experience as a mother that often when you ask your child how their day was, they just say, fine, what did you learn? I can't remember. And so in order to help parents to have a clearer idea about what's happening for their child, we've invested in 2 bits of technology. They're both apps. First one is Class Charts, and that's an app you can download on your phone, and you can keep track of how well your child is behaving effectively. So you can see when they've been given citations, positive praise by teachers. You can see when they've picked up credits and what those are for. But you can also see if they've picked up corrections, and that allows you to nip in the bud any kind of emerging behaviours before they become a habit. So if you see they've had a correction for equipment, you can address that, make sure that they're setting their bag up the night before, their routines at home are right so that they don't forget any essential equipment. If they're picking up corrections for talking in class, then again, that's something that you can speak to them about, and we can start to unpick those habits before they become entrenched patterns. The DPR is more of an academic tool, and as I mentioned before, it's something we use to break the curriculum down for students so they can see what they need to learn and master each year. And you'll be able to see 3 times a year their teacher's judgment about whether they've secured that knowledge, whether they're consolidating, or whether they're still just developing that knowledge. And that allows you to be a bit more targeted. So if you are going to give them extra help, for example, in maths, you can be targeted on the areas that they're struggling with rather than the areas they've already secured. And it means that your energy is a little bit more impactful, and also our energy in supporting students is a bit more impactful too. All of children's homework is set through the DPR, and it organises it into a helpful to-do list, which means that you can see what work needs to be prioritised first. And that enables your child to develop those independent study skills and organisation skills, and to prioritise their time so that when they do finish their homework and they are able to be organised enough, they can spend that rest of that time with their family, with their friends, doing the things that they enjoy for leisure activities, and doesn't feel like an overwhelming task. So finally, our approach is to take an evidence-based approach to school improvement. We've made lots of changes to the school over the last 5 years, and those were the sum total of visiting some of the best schools in the country, looking at the available evidence, not just from the UK, but across the world, about what makes high-performing school systems. And I think we take a really long-term view of school improvement. Our intention is to build a school that is one of the best schools in the country, and I think having any less of an ambition would be doing a disservice to our community of students and families. And we continue to work towards that end by looking at what the best available evidence is, and where we can adapt best practice for our context, for our students, and weave it, sort of align it to what we already do here as a school and what's already working. We have really high expectations of children, but that's because we believe in them. We believe in every single child's capability of making excellent progress, and we care about them deeply. And we care about them enough to build strong relationships with them and with their families, and to make sure that they have the best possible education that we can give them. And that's always our fundamental aim and our fundamental intention. So finally, just something on the process of applying. Our planned admission number is 180. You may have heard that it's larger than that, but that's because we took some bulge classes who are currently in our year 9 and year 10. But our actual pupil population size is 180, and it will remain so for the foreseeable future. Make sure that you submit your application on time. All late applications are considered after the first round of allocation. So it's really, really important to get it in on time. My advice would be not to worry too much and overthink the banding system or overthink too much around distance, but to put down your preferred schools in the order you would most like them for your child. Obviously, if you know that you live miles away from the school, it's probably not prudent to just put schools down that you're very unlikely to get allocations for. But within reason, we take students from kind of a range of different districts across Hackney and Tower Hamlets and Islington. And it's the nature of where we're positioned on the border of 3 different within Hackney, and then on the border of 2 other boroughs. So if you want to ask somebody about that, you are more than welcome to ring our admissions team. But there's also information on the Hackney admissions website, which gives you an idea of the distance of the last child that was allocated a place in 2022, to give you an idea whether you're likely to sit within our catchment area. Good luck with your application. We'll be very happy to welcome your child in September. And very happy to meet you at any of our subsequent open events. Thank you for listening.